Hello, I'm Locke Meredith. I'd like to invite you to join me on the next Legal Lines where my guest is Richard Ieyoub. Mr. Ieyoub has been recently appointed by Governor Edwards as Commissioner of Conservation. Mr. Ieyoub has been, in the past, the Attorney General for the state, and now he's taken on the role of regulating and partnering with one of the largest energy producers in the world, and that's all of our chemical companies here in Baton Rouge in the state of Louisiana. So join us on the next Legal Lines where I have Mr. Richard Ieyoub.
It's time now for Legal Lines Tips with your host, Locke Meredith.
Hello, I'm Locke Meredith with a Legal Lines tip for you. Document your claim. What do I mean? Whenever you present a claim, whether it's for injuries in an automobile collision or for a breach of contract case or a business claim, it all boils down to documentation and evidence. For example, when you go to trial, basically both sides are presenting their evidence of what they believe to be their case. For example, also, if you're involved in an automobile collision, document the event. Talk to all the parties who are involved. Get their names, address, contact information, insurance info. Talk to the witnesses on the scene. Also get their contact information. Take photographs. With the phones we all have these days, everybody can take a picture and that paints 1,000 words. So document your claim. The Legal Lines tip from me, Locke Meredith, to you is document the claim.
This has been Legal Lines Tips.
Hello, welcome to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith, and I'm very pleased to have back on the show Richard Ieyoub. Richard has just been appointed by Governor Edwards as the Commissioner of Conservation. Richard, thank you so much for coming in.
Good to see you. Always a pleasure.
Great to see you.
Always a pleasure.
Well, so, you know, it's interesting. You have literally been involved in politics and in public service in so many different ways, and I know that this is a new kind of direction that you're taking. Right. Well, let's revisit what you've done in the past. You know, just briefly tell folks about your education and your employment and kind of what you've done in public service.
I graduated from McNeese State University in Lake Charles.
Got a good friend, Leonard Smith.
Right.
A great football player.
Absolutely. My hometown. And I went to law school, LSU Law School, graduated from LSU. After which I worked for a while in the Attorney General's office in the criminal division.
Special prosecutor.
That's right. Special prosecutor Billy Gust was the Attorney General at the time. Then I went back to Lake Charles, got into private practice, and in 1984 I ran for District Attorney of Calcasieu and won. I served one term, 6-year term as District Attorney of Calcasieu, and then I ran for Attorney General and was elected in 1991.
And served, what, 12 years, right?
3 terms as Attorney General.
And had lots of folks that worked for you and did a lot of great things for the state of Louisiana, one of the most important being the tobacco litigation.
Absolutely. I think that was the highlight of my years as Attorney General because it had such a broad impact on our culture and on the health and safety of our children.
And for the state of Louisiana,
$4.6 billion for smoking-related
billion as in B.
That's right, for smoking-related diseases caused by tobacco. But what I really feel good about is that we stopped them from advertising in such a way as to appeal to children between the ages of 12 and 18. The tobacco companies had done research and they knew that if they could addict a kid, believe it or not.
Had them for life.
They'd have them for life. But if a kid got past the age of 18 without becoming addicted, they probably wouldn't smoke the rest of their lives.
Fascinating.
So we stopped them from getting involved in that sort of advertising that would appeal to kids. The Joe Camel, that sort of thing.
And I also was reading that you used a very novel theory to give you the power to sue on behalf of the citizens of the state of Louisiana.
Right. It's an old Latin term, parens patriae, which basically means the parent or father of the country. And the Attorney General is seen as the protector of the people.
The attorney for the state.
The attorney for the state.
The people.
And can voice or can bring a cause of action for the protection of the people in parens patriae, and it's been very, very good. The Attorney General, I think, has the constitutional authority as a constitutional officer elected by the people to do that, to intervene in these actions and to take independent action to try to protect the people.
Well, and I know you also, as Attorney General, were focused on protecting children. You implemented sex predator programs that brought in high-tech technology,
Correct.
etc.
That's right. We started the high-tech program in the Attorney General's office because, as you know, we were seeing a lot of instances of child predators.
It's horrible.
It's terrible, and it's very, very dangerous. And it's been very successful. I think they have enlarged the section since I've been there, and they've been very successful in stopping a lot of the predators.
So your most recent new political service job, public service job, is that of Commissioner of Conservation. You were
right.
appointed by Governor Edwards in January of this year, correct?
Right.
Tell the folks what that is.
I will. I feel very fortunate to be able to, for a second time in my life, serve the public and the people of the state of Louisiana. I'm thankful to Governor Edwards for his belief that I can handle that job.
And the Senate had to approve.
The Senate, yes, I hadn't been confirmed by the Senate yet, but I suspect that during this regular session that they will confirm me, hopefully. But the commissioner has a lot of responsibility. To put it, mildly or bluntly, let's say, in a very simple way, the commissioner is in charge of administering every activity relative to the conservation and development of oil and gas resources, as well as other natural resources in the state of Louisiana. He also is charged with protecting the environment and the public from contamination, from oil waste, and from other sources of pollution. And it's a very, very big job, an important job, but thanks to a fantastic staff that I have.
I think I read 160.
160 people, 165 probably. We have field offices in Shreveport, Monroe, and Lafayette. Those are field inspectors who go out and inspect the oil fields and make sure the rigs are being handled in a safe way. And we've done a great job, and I've been able to really get my feet wet thanks to a great staff.
Well, and I think in our discussions, you've indicated they're highly educated, well-trained. Most of them are engineers of some sort.
That's right, exactly. I mean, they're all civil service, and it's made up of engineers and geologists. A lot of things we deal with are highly technical.
Right.
And thank goodness I have these people to spoon feed me all the technical aspects of the job. And once I have all that information and learn about it, I'm a pretty quick study. I can make decisions, and they can back me up on it.
Well, let's point out what your jurisdiction and authority is over. And again, you said it, it's the oil and gas and all the minerals, in essence,
that's right.
of the state of Louisiana, which
Right.
has tremendous value.
Absolutely.
Because it produces a huge amount of revenue for the state
That's
and
right.
jobs.
It is. The oil and gas industry in the state of Louisiana is tremendously important to our overall economy. And we've been suffering lately because of the price of oil, and it's gone down drastically. We're hopeful that it'll come back up. It's shown a little bit of being revived. I think it's about $41 a barrel now. It had fallen down to 30. And when we lose oil and gas revenues, it really drastically affects our overall budget and our economy. So we're hopeful that it will come back.
All right, well, so let's continue this on the next segment, and we'll discuss, in essence, what specifically you guys are doing to try and help the industry in a way, because the industry is part of our state and contributes so well. So this is Locke, Meredith with Legal Lines. My guest, Richard Ieyoub. We'll be right back.
It's time now for Legal Lines Tips with your host, Locke Meredith.
Hello, I'm Locke Meredith with a Legal Lines tip for you. If you have to hire a lawyer, and I hope you don't, but if you do, hire a lawyer that you like, that you trust, and who specializes in your area of need. In these days, with all the laws we have, lawyers for the most part now specialize. They specialize in contracts, defense, business, personal injury, all kinds of areas of the law. So when you interview with a lawyer, ask him, does he specialize in the area of your need? Has he tried the cases? Has he been successful? And of course, how does he charge you? Is his fee hourly? Is it a percentage of the case if he recovers? What exactly does he charge? So my Legal Lines tip from me, Locke Meredith, to you is, if you have to hire a lawyer, hire one you like, you trust, and who specializes in your area of need.
This has been Legal Lines Tips with your host, Locke Meredith.
Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. Very pleased to have back on the show Richard Ieyoub. He's been recently appointed by Governor Edwards as the Commissioner of Conservation for all of the oil and gas and minerals in the state of Louisiana. Richard, again, thank you for doing this show.
Thanks, Locke.
You know, we were talking briefly about kind of your time in public service. You also ran for the Senate and ran for governor.
That's exactly right. I ran for the United States Senate in '96. Almost made it, not quite. I think statewide, I lost by about 15,000 votes. You know,
and you had won the largest amount of votes in your run as Attorney General.
My first run for Attorney General, I got more votes than any man in the history of the state.
Wow.
1.14 million votes, went over 1 million votes. In my second race for Attorney General, I went over 1 million votes again.
And I read it was like 76% of the vote.
Yeah,
Remarkable.
and nobody that's ever run for office in the state has ever gotten over 1 million votes twice. You know, and I did that. It was really. I was elated with that kind of.
Well, it shows a lot of public trust, is what it shows,
well,
and I think it's important to bring it out. And then you
hope
ran for governor, and
I ran
likewise
for
did
governor.
exceptionally well.
Yeah, I did well in the race for governor. It just wasn't my time. Again, very, very close race, and we almost made it there too. So. I'm still happy with the accomplishments that I have had.
Well, and you've in fact been inducted into the Louisiana Political Hall of Fame.
I have. This past Saturday, it was a great night, and it was a great honor, and I'm thankful to the board members of that organization for electing me as an inductee into the Political Hall of Fame. We had some great people along with me, you know, John Mamalitas, Boise Bollinger, Randy Haney, Khalees Saloom. You know, there were just a lot of people. The Shahardy family, Sam Jones's family from Lake Charles, my hometown. It was a fantastic night.
And I guess I bring all that up to say, you know, you're what, 71?
Yeah.
And you've reached the pinnacle heights of public service in a lot of ways, and then here you decide to re-engage.
You know, again, I feel very fortunate. I love public service. I mean, just about my whole adult life, I've been in public service, from a young lawyer in the Attorney General's office to district attorney to Attorney General, and now Commissioner of Conservation. I feel very lucky to be able to serve the state. I get a tremendous amount of personal satisfaction out of trying to do good things for the people, and I enjoy it. Well, I really do.
And in those previous roles that you've played, those positions that you've held, you were there to protect the public.
Exactly.
And one of the roles that you have now as Commissioner of Conservation is to make sure that the production, extraction, and then ultimately disposal of whatever waste occurs in gas and the production of oil is done safely for the public.
Exactly right. We have a lot of authority when it comes to that. We inspect wells. We make sure that after the production they're plugged correctly so that there wouldn't be any type of environmental damage to the land. I can issue orders telling people, compliance orders, telling individuals and companies that they must do certain things to ensure environmental safety, and if they don't comply, I have the right to fine them with a civil fine.
And of course, we've seen the consequences of there not being regulation for the safety of the public and the BP oil spill.
Absolutely.
Now that was that was outside of our jurisdiction of
That's
the
correct.
state.
That's correct. That was in federal waters. And so it was a federal matter, however, it impacted the state. But that's the sort of thing that can happen when you don't have people that follow the regulations. I've approached the job by letting individuals in the oil and gas industry to know that I'm not adversarial. What I want to do is to try to help them and to handle issues and problems they may have so that the industry can work efficiently. And when it does, it's best for the state, the state can really profit from.
And I know that I just read recently Governor Edwards had a meeting with some of the big boys in the oil and gas industry and indicated that they were not being targeted in any way by the legislature for taxes.
That's right.
And that he's actually doing what he can to keep the feds off the back of our oil and gas producers. How does the federal government affect the production of our oil and gas?
Well, a lot of times it's through regulation and through certain things that they require relative to getting federal monies to carry out our programs. For instance, we have we have a pipeline division in our department. We inspect and make sure all of the pipelines that are intrastate or
within the borders of the state.
Within the borders of the state of Louisiana. Now, in order to get certain federal funds to hire people to do that and to help our particular department, we need to abide by certain federal regulations. And there are federal regulations that we as an industry and a state must abide by in order to carry on our business and in order to get federal grants when we need it.
And so your jurisdiction is in the Gulf of Mexico out to 3 miles into the ocean, and the government picks up everywhere else.
Yeah, that's right. And outside the borders of the state, of course, that's various states' jurisdictions as well as federal jurisdictions.
And we've actually talked about it, the fact that, I believe this is correct, that Texas, on the other hand, and maybe Florida, maybe one other state, they have a boundary that's even further out into the Gulf.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, but that's very interesting.
Sure seems like something we ought to...
I intend to look that up.
I know State Senator Dan Clater has brought it up, and sure seems like something we should, because the bottom line is that means the federal government's getting the oil revenues and taxes from it instead of our state.
Right, you're talking about past the 3 mile limit.
Correct.
Right. Florida and Texas may have a 12-mile limit out into the Gulf. That's very interesting. I definitely have to check that out.
Well, let's kind of shift gears a little bit. So you have to bring together, and you said it's not an adversarial relationship, but the bottom line is the state gets a huge amount of money from the activities of the oil and gas companies.
Right.
And so tell me the players that you have to bring to the table. How do you make this all work?
Well, obviously, there are very many large companies that are in the oil and gas business, as well as smaller individual operators that are involved. And what we try to do is work with them to allow them to get the best product and be able to accomplish everything they need to accomplish to have a very growing business, and one that can certainly survive, and one that can provide the state with much needed funds. What I want to do is, and I told them, I also spoke at the same organization that the governor spoke.
All right, well, let's continue this on the next segment. This is Locke Meredith with Legal Lines, and my special guest, Richard Ieyoub. We'll be right back.
It's time now for Legal Lines Tips with your host, Locke Meredith.
Hello, I'm Locke Meredith with a Legal Lines tip for you. Never sign a settlement document without first seeing an attorney. You often can see an attorney for free, at least on the first visit. Knowledge is power. Learn what it is that you're signing and the consequences of signing that document are. Remember, once you sign a settlement document, regardless of whether it's contractual, business claim, or personal injury claim, it's over. You will no longer have rights. You can no longer file a lawsuit. You better know what your consequences are. You better make sure you're being fully compensated. And remember, oftentimes, there are obligations that you have once you sign that contract. So from me, Locke Meredith, to you, the Legal Lines tip is never sign a settlement document without first seeing an attorney.
This has been Legal Lines Tips.
Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith, and very pleased to have back on the show Richard Ieyoub. He is newly appointed Commissioner of Conservation for the entire state of Louisiana. Richard, thank you again for doing this show.
Thank you very much.
Let's dive in.
Right.
So you said you spoke with the same group of folks that the governor did this past week.
Exactly.
So what did you tell them?
Well, I told them that I was there to try to help them, to try to work with them. I know they have a lot of problems now with the price of oil as it is. And I told them that if they had any issues or problems that they wanted to discuss, that my office was open. I want them to know that I have an open office policy. And I think that when reasonable people sit down and talk about an issue or problem, you normally can work it out. I found that to be true when I was Attorney General. We worked out a lot of problems that seemed very difficult, but when we sat down and talked about it face to face, we were able to work it out.
And you've said it several times, you don't want there to be an adversarial relationship.
Exactly. That's right. See, I want them to trust me as somebody that sincerely wants to help the industry. And
because if you help them, it helps the state and the citizens.
That's right. And at the same time, I want to be sure that our friends who are conservationists are protected. I want them to realize that I will do whatever I have to do to protect the environment. And as long as the businesses are carried out in accordance with the regulations and the law, we should be able to protect the environment. When the governor appointed me, he said very wisely that what he wanted to try to achieve is an even balance of conservation and development. When it goes too far one way or the other, then you're in trouble.
It's interesting because, you know, people have to understand that the oil and gas is a limited asset.
Right.
And therefore it has to be handled and managed efficiently and effectively so we get the most out of it that we can.
That's right.
So how do you get the players? As I understand the players, you got the federal government with their rules and regulations, you've got the state who regulates the activity and disposal, but also generates tons of revenue from it.
Right.
You've got the businesses, and then you've got the folks, the environmental folks, or just citizens who are concerned about the effect of this activity.
Absolutely, and when all of those particular segments of our population feel that you have a commissioner that's reasonable and can listen to them, I think it's going to work. I think that once you establish trust, that's very important for those that you regulate to trust you. And realize that you're there to try to help. Because if all of those people work together and are happy and satisfied, then it's going to benefit the state. One way or another, it'll benefit the state. Now, there are a lot of problems that we have because of the price of oil.
Right.
For instance, there are a lot of small operators, not big companies, small operators, say like in North Louisiana, who have drilled wells, and the wells might be producing maybe 2 barrels a day or so. The law says that everyone that drills a well has to have financial security, somewhat like insurance, whenever you drill a well, so that if something goes wrong with the well and there is some environmental damage, that security can cover trying to take care of it instead of the state having to come in and take it. Now, some of the people that just have small operations are finding it very tough to come up with the financial resources to pay that financial security. We're trying to work with the legislature right now to try to help those people.
And you mentioned it earlier, but it's amazing to see what's happened over the last 2 or 3 years. We used to look at the newspaper or the web and see the oil prices per barrel of 140 or somewhere around there. And now we're down to between the 30s and low 40s.
Absolutely. You know, when the regulations regarding the amount that we would charge for financial security were implemented, the price of oil was about $50 or $60 a barrel. And now that it's down to $30 a barrel, it's very difficult for these people who once were able to afford the finance.
Because they'd have those assets to, I guess, use.
Right. Exactly, that's
now
true.
They're not worth one-fourth of what.
That's right, it's not working. So we've got to try to accommodate that.
So how do you affect communications with all of the players? Do they come to you, or do you reach out to them, or is there a website they communicate?
Well, lately I've been reaching out to them. I mean, I've attended all of their meetings. Normally they'll have their yearly meetings around this time of year. Every time I get an invitation, I make sure that I'm there. I make sure that I'm seen there. I talk with the people, and I try to hear what their problems are. So I'm going out to them. I've been in office now for about a month and a half, and during that time I've met with a lot of people. I'm reaching out to them. I want them to realize, however, that anytime they want to come to my office or to speak with me, they have the right to do it.
You know, we were talking about the consequences of the huge drop in oil prices to the businesses, but it's also hugely affected the state. I mean, I think I read today, they just had one special session.
That's right.
Now they're in the regular session, and the big issue is we don't have enough money to pay the bills.
We really don't. It's a really serious situation. I know all of the state agencies are worried about the cuts that they're going to have to absorb. We're looking at the budget for fiscal year 2017 in our little department, and it is small in comparison with a lot of the other agencies. But if we have to take the budgetary hit that is being predicted for our department, we're going to lose a lot of people. And that's obviously going to impact our ability to offer the services that we offer.
It's such a quandary because I know, I read there's a deficit of almost $1 billion, $750 million to $1 billion for next year. There's still $75 million deficit right now. And the revenues that I read that are generated either directly or indirectly by the oil industry to the state is roughly $3.5 billion per year.
Right. It's been tremendous. You know, severance taxes for one thing, and that's another function of our office is to do a production audit.
Interesting.
You know, the severance taxes obviously are based on what the product is, how much are produced by the oil wells, and certainly we do the audit to see just how much production we have from various oil fields and oil wells, and we do a very, very good job with that. But that's one of our you know, requirements and responsibilities.
Well, Richard, we're very glad that you've been appointed by the governor.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service to the state.
Really appreciate it.
Great seeing.
Thank you, Locke.
This is Locke with Legal Lines and my special guest, Richard Ieyoub, Commissioner of Conservation for the state of Louisiana. We'll see you next time.
It's time now for Legal Lines Tips with your host, Locke Meredith.
Hello, I'm Locke Meredith with a Legal Lines tip for you. Never give a recorded statement or give a written statement without first seeing an attorney. Remember, you can always see an attorney for the most part free on the first visit. Get educated. Knowledge is power. Learn what the consequences are of the decisions. Learn what the issues are. And then if you feel necessary, give the reported statement. Remember, in Louisiana, we have what's called comparative fault. Typically, what that means is a judge or jury is required to divide fault up amongst all the players to decide who pays what in damages. Recorded statements are often used in depositions and trials to argue that the victim or the plaintiff is partially at fault for their own damages to reduce the amount that they collect. So my Legal Lines tip from me, Locke Meredith, to you is don't give a recorded statement.
This has been Legal Lines Tips.